Good morning, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to episode number 50 in the book of Romans. I'm going to start with a little story today. My daughter gets off the bus. She's about a kindergartner or first grader. And she gets off the bus and she says, I made a new friend today. And I said, that's fantastic. How did you make a new friend today? She said, well, I met this girl. And she told me what her name was. And I told her what my name was. And poof, we were friends. And today we're going to find a similar concept about being friends with God. The point is, you can be friends with God. And there's really kind of like no excuses for it. There's no go fetch questions that have to be answered beforehand. God generally loves questions. He loves real questions. And we're going to find in today's passage a guy or whatever, a person that asks these questions that purpose to distance himself from the Lord, that purpose to make the decision for Christ distant and in the future and far away. For example, that we're never going to get there. We're never going to quite get there. And today's passage is going to disabuse us of those notions. You can be friends with God. Here it is in Romans chapter 10. I'm going to start in verse 5. For Moses writes about the righteousness that is based on the law, that the person who does the commandments shall live by them. So remember, first 7 chapters of Romans, you can't do it by the law. End of story. Even Moses didn't make it on the law. Then verse 6 and 7, the next 2 verses, are these kind of fake questions that the Lord said, you're really not supposed to even ask these questions. Verse 6, but the righteousness based on faith says, do not say in your heart, who will ascend to heaven, that is, to bring Christ down, or who will descend into the abyss, that is, to bring Christ up from the dead. And then it gets to the heart of the gospel. Here it is, verse 8. What does it say? The word is near you, in your mouth and in your heart. That is, the word of faith that we proclaim. Because if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. For with the heart one believes and is justified, and with the mouth one confesses and is saved. So let's talk for a second just about verses 5 and verses 6 and 7, where these questions are asked. Well, these are references to a passage in Deuteronomy chapter 30, where the author, let me just read it. For this commandment that I command you today is not too hard for you, neither is it far off. It's not in heaven that you should say, who should ascend to heaven and bring it to us that we may hear it and do it. Neither is it beyond the sea that you should say, who will go over to the sea for us and bring it to us that we may hear it and do it. That should sound familiar because those are the ones that are quoted. But the word is very near you. It is in your mouth and in your heart so that you can do it. So the idea here is he's trying to say, and quote from this passage in Deuteronomy, becoming a Christian, it's not too hard. It's not too far off. It's not beyond reach. It's not distant. It's not in heaven beyond the sea. It's not too lofty. That is, it's understandable. In fact, Christ tells us in the New Testament in the Gospels that a child can have faith. A child can come. So the word is near and you could do it. And the Lord sets this before us. So the big question is God, do we have a God that's near or is a God that's far? So my favorite people in the world are people that are near to the kingdom. And it's a people group that has set aside the idea of, well, I'm trying to be good enough. I'm trying to merit favor from God. And a light bulb is going on in their hearts where they're saying, hey, God is close. I am being pursued. I'm being hunted for a new kingdom in a good way. And it's a rejection of the notion that Christianity is not understandable. It's not close. It's not possible. It's not out of reach. It's not remote time-wise. It's not lofty and above my understanding. So you don't have to go to seminary and, get a PhD in this. You can understand it. It is understandable. It is within reach, and it's not complicated. So if you ask, what bag do I need to pack to become a Christian? Here it is in Romans 9 and 10, 10, 9 and 10. Because if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. That is, you have to bring your heart. Well, what's the heart? The heart is that near place that one meets God in order to believe in him. And what is it? What is it that you have to believe? That God raised Jesus from the dead. And then confess with your mouth. That is, give outward evidence of an inward faith. Your heart's inside, your mouth is outside. And so something happens inside, and then you confess it with your mouth and give outward evidence of an inward faith. And what is it that you have to believe? And here it is, and this is verse 9, that God raised him from the dead. Because when you say that God raised Jesus from the dead, here's what you're saying. It's a whole bag of things that go into that one statement. It says that there's a God. It says that I'm not that God, that he's real, that he came. Well, and why did he had to come for a rescue? Why was that? Well, because I'm a sinner. And I deserve a due penalty for that. And there was this cross and that had to be suffered through in payment. And then there's this power of resurrection that God has got this. The power is displayed. The penalty is paid. There's a substitutionary payment, and that Jesus was raised. Basically, it's what it is saying is the same thing as my daughter said. Poof, I'm a Christian. Poof, we were friends. If you believe that God raised Jesus from the dead and say it with your mouth, say it in your heart, it's poof, I'm a Christian, and poof, we were friends. It's not complicated. You bring your heart, you bring your mouth, you bring your inclination with your heart, and then you bring your mouth in confession and telling. Poof, you can be friends with God today. How? Confess with your heart, and then believe in your heart, and confess with your mouth. You can do it. That's the point of the passage today, is you can do this. And poof, we were friends. Believe today. Thanks for listening.